Welcome to Locker Talk, episode 27, the show everything WWE, past, present, and future. I am your host, Koltyn, doing this show Han style. I have an absolutely fantastic show for you this week. We've got 6 fan questions here from our top 3 best fans to Locker Talk. If you're not on this list of fans, you need to get on their level and do it quickly because they are currently passing you by, and you don't want to be left behind on the Locker Talk train of awesomeness. So, with that said, we're going to start out with our very good friend, Mr. Steven Cyril. He has a fantastic wrestling website called Let's Talk WWE. There's a dogbarking.com. There's a dog barking is not a part of the web address. It is just letstalkwwe.com. I heard a dog barking. It's gone now. It's in the bushes or something. But anyway, Steven has asked a plethora of really good questions that I would love to address. And so the first one is, do nostalgia goggles affect what I think about WWE? Does the nostalgia goggles make WWE less impressive now than it has been in the past? And to answer that with a simple one-word answer, no. But I do understand that for a lot of people, and I'd even say the majority of wrestling fans, that is a legitimate thing that happens quite readily. I will even go as far to say, and I probably shouldn't speak for those who aren't here, but I would say that is true for my dear co-host Matt. If you want Matt back on the show, one of you is going to have to figure out how to fix his computer, because neither of us are smart enough to figure out how to do it. And so all of you tech-savvy Locker Talk fans out there, tweet us at wwelockertalk. Help Matt out, figure out how to fix his computer, get him back on the show so I don't have to sit and ramble every week about wrestling, and you can hear his differing opinions on wrestling. But I would say that Matt feels that nostalgia goggles seem to make modern WWE less impressive. Then again, I don't know, so if that's completely wrong, I do apologize. But I feel like a lot of people think that, everyone thinks that the Attitude Era is the best era in wrestling. And I'm not going to argue with that. It was an absolutely amazing time. You had an amazing talent, great storylines, with Rock and Austin, with Austin and McMahon, with D-Generation X coming out and pushing the bar higher and higher and higher each and every week. And that made for some great wrestling. But I would even argue that today's WWE roster right now is potentially the most stacked and talented roster they have ever had. That is including the Attitude Era. They might not have the same number of top elite stars that the Attitude Era had, but overall, I think the depth of talent right now is the highest it's ever been. The Attitude Era had Rock, it had Austin, it had Triple H, Mankind, Undertaker. Just right there, those 5 guys, and there was, there's plenty more. There's your Big Show, Jericho, Kane, etc., etc., etc. But just those 5 guys is potentially 5 of the greatest professional wrestler sports entertainers of all time, and they had great talent. But I would say that, like I said, the depth of the roster right now is amazing. I feel there are so many people right now who could be the top guy in the company. You still have those older guys like John Cena and Randy Orton, and the young talent Seth Rollins, who is the guy right now who's doing a great job. Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens, Ziggler, Sami Zayn when he gets back. Neville even, all these guys have just an amazing amount of talent. I know I'm forgetting some people. New Day, of course, could be the Freebird Rule WWE champion. I don't know how that would work, but it would be great, and I would watch it and be entertained, and it would be great. But yeah, I do feel a lot of people are clamoring for a time long gone, and I'm not a fan of that. Um, yes, I do understand that the Attitude Era was great, but we don't need to keep bringing up the past. I think we need to focus on now. We need to focus on the future and focus on making the guys on the roster now into the superstars on the same level as those guys who were in the Attitude Era. I mean, oh, jeez. I don't know, because I feel differently than I feel a lot of people feel about this, because, everyone claims they don't like the PG era. They want to bring back more, um, I don't want to say more risque and more adult stuff, because that could be construed in the wrong way. But they don't like people being locked in by the PG rating. And while I agree with that, I'm not, a huge fan of everything being PG and it's like watching The Breakfast Club on TBS. It's just not quite the same. But at the same time, you have to understand that it's not going to go back to the way it was with the amount of sponsors and political correctness that is going on in this day and age. It just couldn't possibly happen. I mean, if you go back and look at at Raw's Gone Past and just look at the things that they said and did, there's no chance in hell that they could get away with it in this day and age. So I like the older wrestling for what it is. I like being able to go back and watch it and appreciate the hell out of it and see it for what it really is. But at the same time, I really, really like the current product if the writers would sometimes get their heads out of their asses. So I hope that answers your question, Steven. I would love, love, love to hear other people's opinions about this. Whether the nostalgia of the Attitude Era or any other era, really, for that matter, affects the current WWE roster and the current WWE product and make it look less impressive. And so let me know. Leave a comment right below. Tweet us on Twitter at wwelockertalk once again. So thank you, Steven, for that question. I'm going to move on to Steven's next question, wondering if I was booking the current WWE Raw, Smackdown, whatever, what would I do with the current situation that is going on between Paige, Charlotte, and Natalya? And I discussed this a little bit on the last show, but just going straight off, the first thing I would have done is not have Natalya lose to Naomi on Raw after there was this big buildup of the pipe bomb by Paige, and that the Revolution is passing Natalya by, and she's finally back, and everyone was really excited, and it just made absolutely no sense to have her lose to Naomi, who I personally don't like. I've never found her entertaining in the ring. She has the worst finishing move in the history of finishing moves. And so, like I said last week, I would pit Natalya against Charlotte and kind of rehash their old match in NXT for the NXT Women's title. It was one of the greatest matches of all time. And so I would kind of build off that and have those two go into a competitive, competitive friendly rivalry, which could lead to some really, really good matches. Now, with that said, where does that leave Paige? Because with the big pipe bomb, as people are calling it, I don't know if I really like calling it a pipe bomb. I'm not really 100% a fan of that term. But Paige is obviously really hot right now, and I mean that in more ways than just one. So I feel like in my scenario, while Charlotte and Natalya are going at it, it's the perfect time to get another great women's feud going and have Paige go against Becky Lynch, as I was really happy with how that whole segment went, and I really liked how Charlotte and Becky Lynch reacted to all of Paige's accusations. And so I think it would be great to get Becky Lynch on TV more. As you all should know by now, she is my favorite main roster diva, because who doesn't love Becky Lynch? And so I think they could have a, like with Natalya and Charlotte, a great rivalry, great matches. Sadly, it doesn't really leave anywhere for Sasha Banks, who is really the missing piece in all of this. So honestly, you could probably throw her in either of those two feuds, and it would add even more to that, and it would be amazing. Ooh, bless me. My apologies. Whew. But yeah, I think that would make for some really good television. It would make it interesting. The Divas are getting plenty of time at this point. It's just about whether or not that they execute or whether they don't. People who are not executing, being the Bellas, being Dana Brooke, being especially Eva Marie. We're not going to get into that whole debacle. But we're just going to ignore that and move on. So thank you, Steven, for that question. Steven's last question is, what are my thoughts on Brock Lesnar? Oh boy, this should be fun. What are my thoughts on Brock Lesnar being so heavily booked for the month of October? I can't even remember again. The month of hell, or the highway to hell, or whatever the hell they're calling it. And so Lesnar is being booked really heavy, and I assume this has to do with the reported freak out of Vince McMahon, freaking out over the low television ratings that Raw and Smackdown have been getting these past few months. And I think that's a legitimate concern. But I saw on Twitter somebody else point out that TV ratings are down across the board. It's not just in wrestling. It's all TV shows, and I think that's a big thing that we're going to have to look at going forward. TV ratings aren't going to be as high as they used to be with the advent of the internet and with DVR, which is obviously DVR is figured into the ratings. But you can go online and find a YouTube show of Raw, and that's definitely not accounted for in the ratings. And you can go listen to a fantastic show called RTM Wrestling, where they give you a react show each and every week of Monday Night Raw, and you get to hear their thoughts and comments on Raw. It's amazing, and there's just so many other outlets that you can do instead of watching the product each and every week. If you miss a week, or if you're just not that dedicated into watching it, there's plenty of other ways to getting your fix of wrestling each and every week, with the WWE Network as well. I don't know where I was going with that, to be honest. Oh, yeah. Lesnar. Building up Lesnar because of low ratings. Okay. So, as you all know, I don't like Brock Lesnar. And I like Brock Lesnar even less when it makes Cesaro look bad. And they made Cesaro look bad in order to make Big Show look strong against his house show. I repeat, they're making Big Show look strong for a house show match against Brock Lesnar. And I have many, many issues with this. And I hope I don't forget them, because they all irritate me to a great extent. The first one, it's a frickin' house show. I know it's being recorded for the WWE Network. I know it's at Madison Square Garden, the greatest arena on earth, or so they would like us to think. But it's still a house show. Apparently, from also what I've read, the numbers aren't doing well. They're not selling a lot of tickets. And so I assume they're going to try to build up this show even more. But it just makes no sense to sacrifice a young star like Cesaro for the sake of just a house show. 2, Big Show is Big Show. He's never really changed as a wrestler. He's just a giant, and that's what he is. You don't need to really build him up all that much, I don't think. He's still a giant. regardless of booking, he's still 7 feet tall. He's still 450 pounds, and he still has a fist that's the size of both mine combined. It's ridiculous. And so I feel you don't really need to do that. They didn't give Kofi Kingston and the New Day a strong booking before the Beast in the East show, which I watched today on the WWE Network. It was still really good. And they didn't do that for the New Day, but they're doing it for Big Show, and I don't understand why. And third, who actually thinks that Big Show is going to beat Brock Lesnar regardless of who he beats on Raw? I mean, if Big Show beat Seth Rollins, John Cena, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan, and Andre the Giant in one Raw back to back to back, you're still not going to think that he has any chance of beating Brock Lesnar. It's just not going to happen. It's not believable. And so I really don't understand why they're booking this in a way that impacts a guy like Cesaro. And maybe I'm just biased because I really enjoy Cesaro and Cesaro's work. And I don't know. I'm probably overreacting to this, but at the same time, I don't care. It's a mixture of things I like and don't like, all getting combined in the worst possible way. And it upsets me. And next, like I said on last week's show, the next part of the month of Brock Lesnar will be his podcast show with Stone Cold Steve Austin on the network. Yeah, I've been to that. If you don't know what I said last week, go back and watch it. Basically, why do I want to hear Brock Lesnar talk for an hour about anything ever? Excuse me. And third comes to the Hell in a Cell match between Undertaker and Brock Lesnar. And this is the most obvious part of the ploy to get higher ratings for Raw, to try to build up this big Hell in a Cell match. One, it's being rushed. If they're going to do this, it needs to be at WrestleMania. Two, I don't want to see it happen at WrestleMania. Three, are you serious, bro? Like, are you serious? Either, I said it on Twitter today, either this is going to be the most boring Hell in a Cell match we've ever seen, or they just don't care what happens to The Undertaker. This man does not need to be in a Hell in a Cell match, and he certainly doesn't need to be in one with Brock Lesnar. That is just an absolute recipe for disaster. It shouldn't happen. He's barely made it through the matches he's had with him without a Hell in a Cell being thrown into the mix. And with it being a Hell in a Cell, you know that they're going to use it. It's, they wouldn't have it be a Hell in a Cell if they weren't going to use it. And so I just think it's a really irresponsible use of The Undertaker. And he obviously had to have, given his okay. But that obviously didn't work well at WrestleMania 30. We're not going to go into that. But this seems to me to be a really desperate ploy by WWE to get ratings, and I don't like it at all. I don't want to see Undertaker ending up like guys like Terry Funk and Mick Foley, and guys whose body is just so beat up they can't walk straight anymore. That's when it's too far. It's sad to see, especially when guys like that had such storied careers and were such great wrestlers, and now it's just sad to watch, and I absolutely hate that. And I don't want that for The Undertaker. He is one of the best, if not the best. He is on the Mount Rushmore of greatest wrestlers, greatest sports entertainers of all time. And I don't want to see it happen. I'm very leery about this. I hope that they can do it, and they're obviously going to try it. They're never try to make it not safe, but I just hope that they take extra precaution when it comes to this match. And so, yeah, that's all I have to say about Lesnar. If you want more, once again, tweet me. Thank you, Steven, for all your questions. I know I spent a good chunk of the show on that, so that's exciting. I'm going to move on to RTM Wrestling. Our amazing, awesome friends across the pond, Andy and Emma, the most adorable couple you've ever seen in your life. And if you don't know, if you don't watch their show, you definitely should. I don't know why you're not. But they are currently doing I think they're titling a squash match challenge. And so let me just set this up for you here. They're having a competition. They want ideas for different competitions that they could do on their show. So make sure you guys go tweet at them at RTM Wrestling. Different ideas of different competitions that they can do. And so the idea of this is the loser. If Andy loses, he has to, and I can't believe I'm saying this, he has to wear a Nikki Bella t-shirt to NXT London. And if Em loses, she has to wear a Miz t-shirt to NXT London. And if you don't watch their show, which you really should once again, that is a very, very bad loss for either of them. And really, let's be honest, a loss for anyone. But, so, if you guys get a chance, go over and tweet them and give them some ideas for some competitions. I did give their idea that they could come and each cook me a meal, but I don't know if they're gonna do that, you know, traveling costs and whatnot. But anyway, 2 questions here from RTM. First one, what would make SmackDown relevant? Getting canceled. That would what make it relevant. Honestly, I don't see very much that could make SmackDown relevant right now. It is getting better from what I've watched. It is definitely a lot better than I remember it being in the past. I think, honestly, it should help a lot when SmackDown moves over to the USA Network. I believe, I want to say March of next year, but it might be earlier than that. It might be later. I know early 2016, SmackDown is moving over to the USA Network, and I don't know why I think that will make it better. But I don't know. I think it just make it better. I'm not really sure. But I know it's been discussed before that if you kind of make SmackDown like the wrestling show and just make it all about wrestling. So if you get guys on there every week like Kevin Owens and Neville to just go out there and wrestle and put on great shows, I think that would help SmackDown a lot. You have Raw to put on good matches and do the sports entertainment thing at the same time. But I think if you make SmackDown more about wrestling, that could make it more interesting for people. I have a hard time answering this because I've never really been a big SmackDown fan. You know, even back when it had guys like Batista and Taker and Edge, I never really got into the show. I only ever knew what was happening when pay-per-view time came around. And so I was always a little bit lack of my information. I've always been a Raw person, partially because for a lot of the time I never got the channel that SmackDown was on, and so that's kind of lame, but whatever. That's not really important. But there's a lot of things that could happen, and a lot of things that probably aren't going to happen. So I don't know. I think I'm torn on whether I think maybe SmackDown should move to the WWE Network. It could be improved that way just because you wouldn't have to worry rather about sponsors, corporate sponsors, and all that kind of stuff. You know, you could do away with Main Event and Superstars, whatever the 2 shows are, and just instead of doing that, just do SmackDown each week and have that as an added bonus for those of us who do have the WWE Network, that you can get all the stuff. You know, have SmackDown be the same, still have the storylines mean something, and just put it on the network as another incentive to get people to watch the WWE Network. I don't know if that would work, but I think it would be an interesting thing to try. The bad thing is, I think if you did try that, you probably wouldn't have an opportunity of going back to TV, and so you'd kind of be stuck with that decision. But what do I know? I'm not a business person. I don't do the whole money corporate kind of thing. That's just not me. So yeah, I'm not really sure. Once again, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. I'm interested to hear all of your thoughts on all of these questions. So once again, just make sure you leave a comment or tweet us on Twitter at WWE Locker Talk. And so thank you, RTM, for that question. We're going to move on to your next question. And this was posed, I believe, 2 episodes ago, 2 of their regular podcasts ago, where they discussed WWE movies. And so they have asked us if we could do an Expendables movie with WWE Hall of Famers, who would it be? And so I've kind of twisted this a little bit, and I won't lie to you guys, this might make me look bad, but I've never actually seen any of the Expendables movies all the way through. I've seen bits and pieces of a few here and there, so I'm not 100% sure of everything that's going on, other than the fact that it's just a action, explosion, kick-assy kind of movie. And so I'm just taking this as the most badass, ass-kicking WWE Hall of Famers / legends / a couple of new guys. And I put the couple of new guys in because I just would like to tell a couple stories that I've read about those guys, which I really like. And so the first Expendable, which I'm not 100% sure about the name, because expendable means that they could just die and it's not a big deal. But it is a big deal to me, so. The first one, Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was in the original Expendables movie, so might as well put him back in there anyways. He's the quote-unquote toughest SOB in the WWF, or whatever. Next one, Roddy Piper. Because how could you not put Hot Rod in a movie like that? He could be the bad guy even. It would be really cool. But he's not, and so that's okay. The next one, Harley Race. He is well known as being one of the toughest people ever in the history of the world. It is said that there's 2 people in this world that scared Andre the Giant, one of them being Harley Race. The other one I'm going to mention towards the end. But yeah, Harley Race. Once again, these are these guys in their prime, not right now, because that would just be a sad movie. Oh, you mean like the actual Expendables now? Yeah, it is kind of sad. But yeah, Austin, Piper, Harley Race, Arn Anderson, Double A, another just one of those rough and tough guys. I feel like most of the wrestlers back in the 70s and 80s, and before even, they're just really legitimate tough guys. So you could just pick any of them out there. Another one's Afa and Sika, the Wild Samoans. All those Samoans are just bad dudes who I'm going to get to here really soon. The Wild Samoans, just 2 guys you would not want to mess with. And speaking of 2 guys you wouldn't want to mess with, I'm going to go to my younger guys here really quick. And so the first one, it's going to sound a little weird, Chris Masters. And I do have Chris Masters on this list for a specific reason. And I want to kind of read out this story to you guys. If you don't remember, Chris Masters is just ridiculously jacked and strong and has this amazing physique. And so this is a real story, and this is why I'm putting him in here. Apparently, I remember this happening, so this is within the past, 3 or 4-ish years. Apparently, some crazed neighbor had kidnapped and taken Chris Masters' mother hostage in her own home. And so there's this standoff, and the crazed neighbor apparently sets the house on fire to keep the police out. So what does Chris Masters do? He rips a tree from its roots out of the ground. Yes, he ripped a tree out of the ground, smashed it through a window, and went inside the burning house and saved his mother. Yeah, this man deserves an award because that's just amazing. Like he's in this movie based off that story alone. I don't care what he does or if he's a nice, soft, wimpy guy the rest of his life. Just that story, I'm putting him in. The next one I feel is a little bit more believable, but you might not still be 100% sold on this. But that is the story of a man known as Bad News, or as he's known now, King of Absolutely Nothing. Bad News Barrett, Wade Barrett. Apparently, the story goes, as a young man, Barrett, you might know, was a bare-knuckle boxer, which is just ridiculous and stupid to me. But it's just crazy, ridiculous amount of toughness to even do that, or lack of brain cells. And so apparently one night, Barrett wins this bare-knuckle boxing championship or fight or something or other. And so as he's leaving afterwards, he's in this back alley, and he has a big amount of money, and somebody tries to take the money. He tries to mug Bad News Barrett with recorded an 8-inch knife blade. And basically, he gets stabbed. There's a really, really big scar you can sometimes see on his back that kind of goes across his back from being stabbed. But Barrett ends up saving himself, saving the money, and getting away. And he lost a lot of blood, apparently, like massive amounts of blood. Like he should not have been able to walk away, but he did it anyways. And so that is just a real mark of a tough man for me. So yeah, Bad News Barrett. And the last one, who has to be the toughest person I can think of, and that is Haku. And so if you don't know any of the stories of Haku, I highly suggest you go and just spend a time and Google different stories about Haku from other people. There's some absolutely amazing things. Might be bad things, but that's not for me to decide. And so one of the stories is apparently he ripped a man's eye out, which is kind of ridiculous. But I want to read you this quote I have here from Jake the Snake Roberts that he said in an interview about Haka, also known as Mang, which he will refer to him as in this statement. He says, "If I had a gun and I was sitting inside a tank with one shell left, and Mang is 300 yards away, he's mine, right? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is jump out of the tank and shoot myself because I don't want to wound that son of a bitch and have him pissed off at me." I think Jake Roberts is probably a pretty tough guy, and so if someone like that is saying that he's tough, you know he is one tough hombre. So, like I said, go look up stories about Haku. There is some really, really cool stuff if you're into that sort of thing about Haku. So once again, thank you to RTM Wrestling. Make sure you go follow them on Twitter. Follow their YouTube show at RTM Wrestling. Make sure you follow Steven Cyril on Twitter at Steven Cyril. Go to his website, letstalkwwe.com. He has helped us out a great bit with doing our different shows and doing polls and stuff like that. And so we're going to end this show on a bit of a lighter note with a question from Farmer. As you could have guessed, if you can't guess it by now, you're pretty stupid. So Farmer wants to know if Bob Ross painted a picture of wrestling right now, what would be in that picture? let me just preface this and explain why this question was asked, because you might be thinking this is a really weird, random question out of nowhere. And if you know anything about me at all, you know that I absolutely love Bob Ross. I watch Bob Ross probably every day. Not necessarily every day, but most days I watch at least an episode of Bob Ross, The Joy of Painting. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's a great way for me to relax and just kind of clear my mind and not have to think about anything and just watch this beautiful painting be formed in my eyes within 27 minutes. And so I absolutely love Bob Ross. So that's kind of the preface of this question. And so it didn't take me but a split second to figure out what my answer to this question is. What would the picture that Bob Ross painting would be? And the answer to that question is the New Day. Bob Ross for sure would paint the New Day. And I have several reasons for this. And by several, I mean probably two. So the first one, Bob Ross, as you know if you watch Bob Ross at all, is a very happy, positive person, which stems from his time in the military, in which he says that he had to yell at people for a living, and once he got out, he promised he would never yell at anyone ever again. So Bob Ross is this sweet, soft-spoken old man with an awesome afro who paints beautiful pictures. And so being such a positive person like that, it only makes sense that Bob Ross would paint the New Day. And he would paint the New Day into one of his beautiful paintings. He'd have a beautiful blue sky with some happy little clouds and another happy little cloud here and an almighty mountain in the background. And in the foreground, you know, after he's built you this beautiful scene and he's about to the end, you know the show's about over, but if you know anything about Bob Ross, you know he can't help but put in an almighty tree. And that almighty tree has to have a friend because everybody needs to have a friend. And so trees, man, what do trees make? Trees make tables. And who loves tables? The New Day loves tables, and the New Day wants to save tables. And so to save tables, we would have more trees. We would have more happy little trees to make these beautiful Bob Ross paintings. And so to me is without a shadow of a doubt that Bob Ross would be painting the New Day, they'd be planting a tree in this forest of almighty trees with the tree's friends and the happy little clouds, and it would be the greatest painting ever, and I would have to own it. So, with that in mind, even though that's not a possibility, just a regular old Bob Ross picture is something else that I need. So, it's getting to be that time of year. If any of you care enough about me, you will buy me an authentic Bob Ross painting for Christmas. And if not, you can do it for Christmas and my birthday because those things apparently are really expensive if you can find them. So, Bob Ross, New Day, awesome, great, fantastic. That's all I have for you guys this week. So I just want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank everyone for interacting with myself on Twitter. You can tweet us at wwelockertalk. Leave a comment, like the video, all the rigmarole there. And so I just want to thank you again for watching. I hope you all have a great weekend, a great week. Whenever you're watching this, I hope that this show brings you a little bit of joy and happiness into your week. So thank you once again. This has been WWE Locker Talk, episode 27.